64K. Where the future is so bright you gotta wear shades.
Hey, Bastish B here for 64K and welcome to another episode of Shoot 'em Up Decades. And welcome back. If you've never watched this show before, I take a look at 3 different shoot 'em up games from 3 different decades. I tell you why I included them, why I like them, and what makes them unique. So let's first jump back to the 80s. Fighting its way through a plethora of arcade shoot-'em-ups was Tiger-Heli, released in 1985 by Toplan. Japanese software company Toplan was formed in 1979 and had their headquarters in Shimizu, Tokyo, Japan. They are most well remembered for their massive contribution to the shoot-'em-up genre in the arcades right up to their bankruptcy in 1994. Many of their games were published by other developers overseas, but they actually made classics like Slapfight, Flying Shark, Truxton, Twin Cobra, and so much more. Tiger-Heli was a vertically scrolling shoot-'em-up and Toplan's first game in the genre, and pretty much set themselves up for what they did best right up to their closure. The team at Toplan took inspiration from an arcade game called Gyrodan, released a year earlier, and used that as the basis for Tiger-Heli. The game set itself apart from the glut of shooters at the time by having a much slower, more relaxed pace, which the team wanted to make it more inviting for new gamers to try it out. Even though you're flying a helicopter, you only ever fought ground targets, which was kind of weird, like tanks, boats, gun emplacements. No planes or helicopters attacked you. As per standard, even in 1985, a smart bomb is included for desperate situations. But unlike other games, it also acts as a form of defense, meaning if you have bombs available and a bullet hits you, it automatically activates, saving your life, blowing everything up on screen, but you losing a bomb in the process. I think it's a pretty unique concept, and I'm assuming the team implemented as another way to keep gamers happy, so you'll come back later to play it without walking away in frustration. Little mini helicopters can also be joined to boost your firepower, and if you died on a level, there were certain checkpoints the game would automatically restart you at. I loved this when I first played it as a kid. The graphics were so extremely colorful and detailed, and I really loved the small little details, like shooting the houses and little puffs of smoke come out as you flew past them. This game's arcade board was later used in another slower paced shooter Toplan developed called Slapfight, which is another great game in its own right. 2 sequels were released later on, named Twin Cobra in 1987 and Twin Cobra 2 in 1995, and are brilliant shoot-'em-ups as well, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to cover them in future episodes too. If you're new to the genre or just not a fan of those bullet hell operas, then give Tiger-Heli a go and see the origins of Toplan's shoot-'em-up legacy. Now let's jump to shoot 'em up heaven, the 90s. The mid-90s was the heart of shoot-'em-up heaven in the arcades, and in 1996 we saw the release of Batsu Gun on the Japanese Sega Saturn. It was based on Toplan's 1993 arcade bullet hell masterpiece, and the conversion to the Saturn was published by Banpresto. Banpresto themselves was formed in 1977, and during the 80s, under their original name, Corland, they made many arcade games, including the Sega 1982 classic Pengo. Banpresto's headquarters were in Shinagawa, Tokyo, and they were probably best known as a toy company and doing many Japan-exclusive games, such as the Super Famicom Robot Wars series and Macross Plus in the arcades. Batsu Gun was a vertically scrolling shoot-'em-up taking place over 5 levels of bullet hell madness. You could choose between 6 characters plus 3 different ships that all had their own unique weapons layouts. What makes Batsu Gun unique was the RPG-styled upgrade mechanic that the game uses. As mentioned, each ship has 2 unique weapons plus the all-important smart bomb. But you don't pick up new weapons as per usual in these types of games. Instead, you pick up experience from down foes, which levels up your weapons for more powerful attacks. And once the weapons are maxed, the experience accumulates to give you extra smart bombs. As per usual, the bullet hell craziness ramps up real fast and becomes a chaotic ballet of death, and it's just so satisfying to play. As is the giant boss characters, which are so much fun to obliterate. The Banpresto Saturn release didn't just simply contain a port, but added a bunch of extra features to the Saturn version, which features a completely new arranged soundtrack, plus the original. It also features the original arcade version, plus an exclusive Saturn version, which includes a modified smart bomb that destroys more of the screen. It takes way more hits also to down your ship, and unlike the arcade, the game loops after the final stage, with the difficulty increased, of course. The arcade version is seen as one of the first examples of the bullet hell subgenre, and this exclusive Sega Saturn version is a fantastic blast, well worth tracking down. Now let's check out the 2000s. So jumping over to the 2000s, you're probably expecting a PS2 or an original Xbox game, but I've decided to feature 2005's Commodore 64 release of Metal Dust by Knights of Bytes and released through Protovision. These are the same guys that would go on to make one of the Commodore 64's best platform games, in which I featured in Platform Decades Episode 1. The game in question was Sam's Journey, a must-play game in that epic genre. Knights of Bytes is a C64 publisher founded in 1997 by Chester Colston, and made some other great fun C64 games like Ice Guys and Bomb Mania in the late 90s. Metal Dust is an amazing horizontal shoot 'em up that has to be seen to be believed. I'll talk about how this game is possible on the C64 later, but let's first focus on the game itself. At first glance, it's your standard shoot 'em up fare and doesn't really add anything new to the genre, but the technical aspect of it though is thoroughly amazing. There are only 4 levels, which doesn't sound like much, but they are pretty massive in length and feature tons of mini bosses before the big end of the level encounters. If you're a veteran Commodore 64 user, you will no doubt notice that these guys were probably big fans of programmer Manfred Trenz, who did Catechus, R-Type, and Enforcer on the C64. The style of the graphics and the insane pace of the game reminds me so much of those classic games. Every level feels like an epic journey as it progresses, and you feel like you're heading further and further down that rabbit hole. As per usual, the game features tons of power-ups and the classic charge shot, just like in R-Type. The music is absolutely amazing, as the game streams full digi music that just sounds fantastic, and every track is a treat. In order to play this beast on a real C64, you're gonna need a super CPU with a RAM card with at least 4 meg of RAM. All this extra memory and features allows this game's music and insane graphics to exist. If that's unavailable to you, you can still play it in VAS, as it supports the super CPU through emulation. And I suggest you check out Reset 64 Fanzine issue number 11, as it gives you a full step-by-step process on how to get this game running, and it was the only way I was able to finally play this game once and for all. Overall, as a C64 shoot 'em up, it's one of the best. The fast pace and relentless action, really well designed stages and boss battles, and the fantastic graphics and sound design really shows what the C64 is capable of with just a little bit of a boost. Check this unique release out. As far as I know, it's the only super CPU C64 game to exist. Okay, so why did I choose Tiger-Heli? I think Tiger-Heli for me was always a great entry-level arcade game for anybody. You could go up to it, you didn't have to have a fistful of quarters to get anywhere. You could take just a handful, like 2 or 3 quarters, and you can get really far in the game. It was like a much easier game to get into. I like the defensive smart bomb idea. I think it's very clever. It's just a really good, often forgotten shoot 'em up that's totally worth checking out. As for Batsu Gun, that was the first, or at least one of the first bullet hell games I'd ever played. The Sega Saturn version there is absolutely fantastic. It's definitely the best version you can go for that I've ever played anyway. It's got like so many extra features, it really adds to the game. You got like almost 2 games in one, like variations on it. The 2-player mode was also excellent. I failed to mention it in the review. The difficulty is average. I would say it definitely ramps up, but for a bullet hell game, it definitely It's a lot easier than the usual ones, at least I find it a lot easier. Excellent music as well, so it's just a great all-round package. And as for Metal Dust, I just wanted to showcase something a little bit different. It's not just a Commodore 64, it's like a kind of a hopped up Commodore 64 game. It's one of the only Super CPU games that I know of. There might be another one out there, maybe a few. I don't know, I've never heard of any, so this might be the only one. Whatever the case, it's a game that is well worth checking out. You're probably going to be playing it through Fast or an emulator, but that's just more practical these days to play that game. Anyway, I also, in the review, I didn't mention that it has an excellent 2-player mode, which makes the game way easier. Also, the game is pretty damn hard. It starts off easy as per usual, it ramps up very quickly and you're going to be getting destroyed. So if you're not into super hard games, then this might put you off a little bit. Graphics are really excellent and that music is so pumping. Also love the way the sound effects mixes in with the music. It just sounds so good. It's obviously got to do with the super CPU and the way they could layer it or something. I'm not an expert on how it actually works, but it just sounds not like any Commodore 64 game I've heard before. It just has this kind of sound level where the sound effects and the music just kind of flow together. It's really cool. And thanks for joining me, Bastish B at 64K. I hope you had a good time. If you can like and subscribe, that'll be greatly appreciated, and I'll see you next time. Cheers. You choosing that one?
Yeah, I'm choosing that guy.
Okay, choose it. So you can go like this, look. You having fun?